Danielle Brooks, you play gospel singer Mahalia Jackson in Robin Roberts Presents Mahalia. Now, to step into the shoes of such a well-known singer, how intimidating was it to not only play her, but to actually do your own singing for the role?
I feel like that's been like the number one question. Has it been intimidating? I'm like, yes and no. I mean, I think to your point, the music was something that, people might not know me for if they haven't seen me in Color Purple on Broadway. And being that she is the gospel, the queen of gospel music, adds a layer to it. But I think for me, I knew that in 2016, I was supposed to play her. I didn't know how I was going to get there. When clearly that was, I don't know, 2016, 5 years ago. I didn't know how long it was going to take, but I knew that I was destined to play her, and here we are. And so I think I wanted to make sure that I did her justice, and that she was honored. And I feel like we accomplished that. I think, you know, you when you make a piece of work, you always think about your audience and what you want them to get. But for me, this one really was to honor her and to honor my church family. Like, I grew up in the church. My mom's a minister, my father's a deacon. Spent 24/8 in the church. And so for me, my first play was at Bethlehem Baptist Church in Simpsonville, South Carolina. And so I was 6 years old when I got the bug. And that's because of them. And so it was a way for me to say thank you to them for laying the foundation for myself, when it came to finding what I love to do. So yeah, there was a bit of intimidation, but I think it didn't last long because I just knew when you know you're on the earth to do something, you just got to step into it. And Kenny and I had my wonderful director, Kenny Leon, for those who don't know who I'm speaking about. We had this thing where he would say, okay, Danielle, it's 80% you, 20% God. And that always kind of let go of any fear that I might have had of not feeling like I was enough or could do it, and or take on all the responsibility as well, because at the time I'm also like being a new mom. I had my 1 year old with me in a pandemic in Vancouver, and you're trying to find the perfect actors, and will you get them because of COVID? You don't know if you can bring people out here, and how many people can you shoot in a scene, and what are the restrictions of singing in a movie now, like getting swabbed. There's just so many factors. um but we made it work.
And one of the things that surprised me about her life and her singing in the church is early on in the film, where we see that her voice isn't considered proper in some churches and some communities. Was that something that you were aware of? It's like hard for me to wrap my head around the idea that Mahalia Jackson, no, that's not how you sing in church.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain type of churches. You have all these different names of different, Pentecostal and Baptist and all of these, the Church in Christ, all of these different types of churches that have their rules. And some churches are way more liberal and others are very much by the book. And I'm sure at that time too, you're living in a generation that has been known as one third of a human, or however, for so long. And they I think people of that time were striving so much to be seen as a full person that, their dignity and pride was so great, of like, this is what refinement looks like, this is what it sounds like, this is how, if we want to be respected, we have to carry ourselves. And I think that also manifested in the vocal. And I think, yeah, people were hearing a different sound and it made them feel something. and they didn't know what to do with it. And I think that's, that happens a lot in different ways. It's like people feeling comfortable. So instead of embracing this beautiful sound, people were like, hold on, this ain't what we know. And so I think that's where it came from. But thank God, she pushed past all of the negativity. And it's funny though, because Mahalia, as was super religious in her way, but she had her morals and she had her things that she was like, you know what, I'm not singing in cotton clubs, I'm not singing in jazz spots and things like that, which she later in life kind of loosened up on. But she was very specific on where she wouldn't sing and what she would sing. So it's funny how she kept hold of some of those things that she was taught, back in her earlier days.
And you know, one of the things that's interesting about the film and this portrayal is that you're portraying Mahalia Jackson over decades of her life,
Yeah.
which I imagine as an actor trying to embody a person, when they're, early on in their career, later towards the end of their life, like how do you, evolve that performance over the course of the film?
I think that's where the training comes in, like knowing to do just is the research portion, and which is that's the part I really enjoy too, is the research and the process of finding who she was in the 20s and who she became in her late 60s, and even how her voice changed, vocally. She was dropping those notes down a little lower. When you get older, that register drops, and like how cool it was to find those things about her. And so I think that's what it kind of, I think it comes with the training of like, okay, doing the research and saying, okay, well, like now she's starting to have some health issues, like what is it for a woman who has vocal issues, in her throat, or if she has diabetes, or like these little things that came up in her life, where do they live in her body, and finding those places, and I think we tried to find that, and I remember there was a moment too where we were debating on like, do we put gray in her hair, but she was a hairdresser. And so we kind of gave ourselves permission to say, well, if she's a hairdresser and knows hair, in all of the pictures we saw, she must have dyed her hair black. So, it was like those little things of like, yes, she might be 69, but these are the things that make her, who she is, staying true to who she is, you know, even if for most might think she might still wear gray hair, those little things.
And there's a physicality to Mahalia when you're performing her in these musical performance scenes, where you could really feel like the energy, the passion, the faith that's coursing through her. Like, what was it like channeling that aspect of her as a performer?
Thanks for asking. I think that was the most fun part. Like, getting to kind of blossom and share parts of who I am through Mahalia Jackson. Like, it's always been easier for me to sing through a character versus like Danielle. And so getting to embody all of those songs. And I think I know for sure that I don't think it would be as moving of a movie if you find someone who's not faith based, like, because that's such a part of who she is, and especially the music. You got to know who God is for yourself, and you have to have some kind of faith and hope, and you have to have that kind of stirring in you, to even get to sing the first note. You know what I mean? To sing How I Got Over in a certain tone. And you have to know where that is living in her body, And so as a Christian, you have to know where that lives in her body. As a Black woman in the times, you have to know. So uh, I'm glad I got to sing all the music live, because there's an authenticity about it and a realness that comes through versus trying to stay to a track that I'm hearing in my head and that I've already pre-recorded, like getting to find it in the moment every time. And she sang differently every time, which was like freeing in a lot of ways, because there's no right way to do it, and it also just allowed me to go with my gut as Mahalia would, with where I think she would, how she would do it versus trying to manipulate, like not manipulate, but like um, do a caricature version of her. I was able to find like the real bits of her.
And performing the songs live while you're filming, did you have one like that was your favorite? That was the one that connected to you the most, or you connected to her
There's
in that
so
moment the most?
many. I love singing how I got over. How did I make it over? You know, my soul looks back and wonder, how did I make it over? And I love singing precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, and let me stand. Like I sang that at my grandmother's funeral. Like those staple pieces that make up the fabric of our country, but specifically African American culture, that did bring us over, that was just such a huge part of who we are as people. And what keeps us going every day are these songs, these hymns that have been passed down from generation to generation to generation. So those two are the two I think that hit me the most.
And I can imagine singing them as Mahalia in the film must give you like a newfound appreciation for really all the songs in her catalog.
Oh, definitely. There's so many, and it was so hard to choose. As I came on as co-executive producer, and they allowed me to bring my voice into the room and actively see the things that I envisioned come to pass. And one of those things was like choosing the songs, and it's super hard because you're like, oh, I need this and we need that, and we can't not do this. And so me and Kenny had a lot of fun figuring that out. But my favorite is like he had the choice of at the end of the movie to sing I'm gonna live the life I sing about. And I just really like that ending the song because I think she really did try to live the life that she sang about every day of her life. Um,
And as mentioned, Kenny Leon, your director, who you also worked with when he directed you in Much Ado About Nothing and Shakespeare in the Park. Like very different project, but I imagine that having worked with him before, did that bring in a level of trust and familiarity that helped your work in this?
Definitely, he is to me. I, how do I describe our relationship? I don't even know because I just it's he. I want to make him proud. He is also of that generation of a man that was raised in the 60s and 70s. And he don't look like it, but Kenny's over 60. And so he's lived through the killing of so many of our leaders, and he was there. And so you want to just do him, you want to make him proud every time, and he leaves space for you to be your best and trust your instincts. And I think that's the most important thing with people that he chooses to work with, is finding people who do have really good instincts and trust their gut and trust their being to say, you know what, no, this, I should do this, we should try this, let's stop, let's do. And he's so collaborative. I feel like he is truly an actor's director. He's someone, he gets it because he's done it. He's acted before, and I just have a great respect for him, and even more so now. But for even just for the second time, making me a lead. Yeah, I was in Orange, but that was such a group project, and to make me the lead in Shakespeare in New York City, to let me lead this movie where I was literally in every scene, but like one, but to trust me and to say you are a leading lady, you deserve to be in that position. I will forever be grateful for him. for being the first one to say yes to this dark skin, size 16 plus size, curly hair woman, me, this Southern girl. I will always be thankful to him for that.
And what do you hope that people take from this story, especially if they're coming to it and they don't have as much of this familiarity with Mahalia Jackson, and and they're learning about her in this way?
I think it is a story about faith and hope and continuing to know that you're gonna be all right. We all gonna be all right. We've, been through a lot this year, past year, with the world and the state of the country and other countries, and feeling alone and feeling like hopeless. When are we gonna get out of this? And not knowing how, when, what, where. But I think she just reminds us, because this is a woman who has lived through a pandemic of 1918, and a woman who's lived through civil wars and race wars and her own personal battles with herself, and wanting to be a mother and wanting to do right by the people that she loves, and trying to run businesses and trying to keep hold of her relationships. And that's the reality for a lot of us. So I think she just reminds us to keep going. Everything gonna be all right.
Well, I want to congratulate you on your work in the film, and
Thank you.
and thank you for honoring us with your voice. Like I kind of
Oh.
wanted you to turn the whole rest of this interview into a concert at one point. Like, if you just want to keep singing, I'll just shut up. I'll go on mute.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Daniel.
thank you so much for joining me today.
Yes, it's lovely to meet you. Very lovely to meet you. And you have a good day.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.